Are there two? Two here? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Look at you.
Hey, good morning.
You look good.
And then when it gets big, we can trim it.
Good to see you. Hey, Ray, how are you?
Okay.
Nice to see you.
You betcha.
Perfect one.
It is.
You feeling okay?
Yeah.
Really? That's the best kind of way.
We raised our kids and then no other take one away.
Yeah, you can do that. Cheryl's right here.
I'm good. 8, 7, 8. I took a picture of each video.
Yeah.
You can take the process.
We must have missed you last week.
Well, if you sit there and run, after the surgery, I thought some of the others.
I switched the shift to
Now we're using umbilicus for capillaries or cells and then reaches over whatever and then for those cells that's within the skin that goes in the but gosh, other major things that nothing's not in
But I know from talking to some other friends that picture they let people from the inside out.
oh yeah. You see what looks like day one? It's all sewn together and it looks awful. It's black.
It's good you've got
Now,
visual evidence.
now let me tell you something important and interesting. It's like that's not interesting. The surgeon, Jeffrey Young, plays with the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. He's a violinist. And the first part of November, he's flying to Australia. He can't be nice right now. It's quite tight. But that's the quality of it. And he's just as nice and funny and engaging, and he never stops work. He's talking to you. Well, yeah, I asked him, could you bring him?
Yeah, really. Can share.
Good thought. I will use it. I will use it.
My payment.
Musical here.
That's why
This is weekly.
that's right, I remember now. Do you want a seat for that? Yes, I do. Check it out. I have that too, probably. Hello, Georgie.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
You still have your sunglasses on now?
Oh, thank you.
It's awful dark in here.
That's why you were
It's that bad eyes. I could understand it, but I mean, it looks... You can. Ring the bells. Go ahead, Danny, hit the bell. Organized religion. You.
Please join me in lighting the chalice. The words are in your order of service. We light the beacon hope, sign of our quest for truth and community, in celebration of the light we share together. And we're trying.
He's pretty good at helping. Thank you.
You're welcome.
First time, and I believe.
This is also the time that we begin to focus inside ourselves, calm our spirits, calm our minds, as we pay attention to the service that's before us. is Charlie Tyler. I'm the pastoral minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Low Country. And we are still trying to figure out how to do things up here with electronics since it got fried a couple weeks ago. So be patient with me. I'm not. Is it on? Am I hearing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Oh.
Now it's on.
You're good. Okay. Good. So welcome to this kind and compassionate service. I pray that you find here something that is unique and different and distinct in your life, and that you find a welcoming and compassionate spirit here in this place, because this is exactly why you all are here who are members. You know that compassion, you know that welcoming spirit, and those of you who are guests and visitors today, my prayer for you is that you experience it here in this place. Speaking of guests and visitors, I'd like to ask if you're a first or second time visitor with us, if you're willing to stand where you are, introduce yourself, and tell us where you're from. It might be helpful for us to get to know you, and that's only if you would be willing to. So I'm going to look at this section over here on my far right, your left. Any first or second time visitors that would like to introduce themselves? In the center, any first or second time visitors? And on my far left, your right, first or second time visitors. Thank you for being here, those of you who have made your way into this place. Diane, I'm going to ask you to come on up here, and as I make a few more announcements, if you could be ready for yours. Thank you. I want to draw your attention to a number of announcements that are in your bulletin. You see that our September theme is invitation. We have been thinking on that theme for a while now. You also see the speakers for the 29th. Clint Pause will be with us. October 6th, the well-loved Pat Job will be with us. The October theme is deep listening, and so we'll be saying to each other, what? Katie Sieber will be talking to us later on, and in October, Dick Hood will be with us as well. Music on Malphras returns on October 4th. Those of you who have not been to the themes of our acoustical season, I think you will find that the participants and those who are performing will really reach and touch your heart. So we're looking forward to hearing John Shane and F.J. Ventra in their performance. Next movie night is this coming Wednesday, October 2nd, at 6 p.m. That announcement's in your bulletin. Take the opportunity to read through that. I'm going to turn this over to Diane in just a second, but I want to make sure that there's any announcements that need to be updated. Thank you for your patience. Diane, if you would.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy International Day of Peace. So yesterday, the United Nations celebrated that, and throughout the world, there were many activities. And we are going to start today our activity, 30 ways in 30 days. And most of you are familiar with this event, but there were a couple of questions, and Leslie's here to help me answer some of those. So just for those of you who aren't familiar with this event, we have a group of we have a peace team who are willing to do one act of kindness every day for 30 days. So at the end of this event, we'll have performed 600 and some acts of kindness, and that is our contribution to goodwill in the world. And we're hoping our few steps of peace will help the world be a better place. So some of the questions were, what types of acts would be considered acts of kindness? And Leslie was kind enough to put together some ideas.
There are so many simple things that we can do. It might be paying it forward. If you're in the line at Starbucks or a coffee shop, you might pay for the person behind you. Sometimes people have done that at toll booths. It happened to me one day in the express lane at the grocery store, and boy, do I remember that.
You might prepare an extra serving of lunch or dinner to take to someone in your community or your neighborhood. You might invite a friend or somebody you'd like to get to know better to come over to your house for a movie. Flowers. Not only could you make up a small bouquet to give to a friend or a neighbor or someone who hasn't been feeling well, or maybe our first responders or healthcare providers, people that you want to say how much you're appreciated in the community. But consider getting some flowers for yourself, because doing an act of kindness to yourself is also very important. In the lobby, we have these forms that will help you with a checklist to keep track of your 30 ways in 30 days. Pick up one in the lobby if you'd like to keep track of that, and we'll also email that out to you. And some of the questions that people had were, do I have to put my name on this when I turn in my ideas next week?
So the answer to that is absolutely not. This is not a contest to see who did more or who did better. The reason we're tracking it is, number one, accountability, because you've made a commitment to do 30 acts of kindness. But the other thing is we will prepare a board and post some of the ideas to help you think of other ideas. And for those of you who aren't on our peace team, we're welcoming you to pick up a form today and try it out for a week and see if you want to continue on. So that's it, unless you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There is one other thing that I want us to focus on as we go through our service today. Recently, we have been paying close attention to the young lives that have been lost to gun violence. And so during our time, one of the things I would want you to know while you're here in this room, there are some small stones up front that many of us have picked up to remind us of those who have lost their lives to gun violence. And if you've not picked up a stone or two, you're more than welcome during the service today or after the service to pick up those stones. But while you're here in this place, I would be asking you to focus on perhaps those souls that have been lost to gun violence. You may not know their names, but they need to be remembered. So if you would please direct your attention to that. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce my good friend Neal Jones and ask him if he would please to bring the opening words to his message. And so Dr. Jones, if you would.
Good morning. On this beautiful morning. Our opening words are by Nishan Panwar. She writes, "Real family does not come from your blood. It's the people standing beside you when no one else is." Let us join together and stand and sing a hymn I bet you know, Amazing Grace. If you don't know it, it's hymn number 205.
I know it, but...
When we
snickerdoodles leave. On behalf of the Sandalwood Food Pantry and Bluffton Self-Help, thank you for your continued support in providing non-perishable food items. We welcome your weekly donations that are placed on the table in the back of the sanctuary. Also, in support of the work that we do here within these walls of our beloved community and beyond, we will offer the baskets for your contributions. If anybody here is a guest and didn't identify yourself earlier, that's fine. But if you're a guest for the first or second time, please let the basket pass, as your presence is a gift to us. Thank you for your generosity.
This is a time in our service where we take a moment to share our joys and concerns. We share our joys in the hopes that we can celebrate with one another, and we share our concerns in the hopes that we can help you relieve some of those burdens. So if you have a joy and or concern, please come forward, take a stone from the basket, share with us your name and briefly your joy and or concern, and then place your stone in the cairn.
Hi, I'm Neal. I'm taking my cue from Jan Dunn, who made a similar announcement recently. I have a joy and a sorrow, and they're the same thing. On November 1st, I plan to move to Columbia, South Carolina. It's a joy because I lived in Columbia longer than any other place I've lived in my life since leaving my hometown. For 16 years I lived there, first as a psychologist, then as the minister of the Unitarian congregation there. So it's a joy in that it'll be a homecoming. But it's also a sorrow because of you. In my lifetime, I've belonged to 9 different congregations. And you've heard me say this before, and it's still true. You are the friendliest, warmest, most welcoming congregation I've ever been a part of. And so I'm going to miss you dearly. I do plan to come back once a month to do my gig in the pulpit once a month and see how that goes. But I will miss you.
We'll miss you too. We'll miss you.
I have a joy, and this is happening this coming Friday, and Kathy Burmeister and I are able to sing in the production that we're giving at First Presbyterian Church on Hilton Head It's called A Night on the Town. I'm one of the basso profundos, and Kathy is one of the stalwart altos in the group. And we'd love to have you come. It's open, and you can, if you're on the internet or on your phone, you can reserve seats. Or if not, just come, and I'm sure there'll be a place for you on Friday night at 7 o'clock. It's called A Night on the Town, so we're doing a lot of familiar pieces like Bandstand, which right under no, nor mine, under the boardwalk, Sentimental Journey, Wonderful World, lots of favorites.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathy. I have a joy. And then I have a sorrow, too. So, yeah. I'm sure we're all feeling that, but so glad you're coming back once a month anyway, so it's good. My joy is my family's arriving today, I think. 4 people, 2 dogs, and then 2 more are coming during the week. And it is a joy to have them. So I'm so grateful and so thankful for family and friends, and love you all. I'm sorry. And the joy of that is my son-in-law called me and said, "Make a list, Mom, see what you need done."
Hi, I'm Linda, and I have a concern. Went with my husband to the cardiologist on Monday, Tuesday, whatever. I've lost track. And we didn't have a great report. It's going to be even worse tomorrow when we see the pulmonologist. So just please keep us in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
I pay attention sometimes, Diana. I just realized when people were getting up to talk, I won't be here next week. Sorrow is, my brother-in-law is not doing well. He's got a mass in his brain. This is all very fresh. He's got something in his kidneys, so they're ruling things out and gathering information. And then my mom up in Virginia, my mom, she's got cancer, and so she's 86. We don't know how much time she has, but she's pretty uncomfortable. But so I'm going to go up and see family and dear friends, so I won't be here next week. But I always appreciate all of your support, so thank you. Put it.
Yay! It's the little things.
Hi, I'm Joanne. I have a joy to share. I have a dear friend in New Jersey where we used to live who had a very difficult time and with depression and was in an institution for a few months. And I really thought, even though she didn't pass away, that I had lost her. She's quite a bit younger than I am. And she came out and she went into an assisted living, but she was by herself most of the time. She wasn't coming out to people at all. So Tom and I were up in New Jersey this summer, and we went out to lunch with her, and I said to her, you know, you have a car, you have a condo, you can have a life, you know, you can get your license back, get your insurance back, get out, you know, of where you are living. And she took my advice. And she texted me a few days ago, well, about a week ago, and told me she was in the process of all of this, and she has now got her license. She's on the road. I said, happy trails, please, you know, see your friends, and I think this has given her freedom. She's now come out of her room and going to dinner with the people where she lives, and you know, she just has a bright future. We used to run together. You know, she was very active. So I think this is a beginning for her, and it's just such a joy for me because I really felt like I had lost her at one time, and now she's back. So thank you.
Did you have something?
I'd like to start by saying I'm sorry I'm late. Things didn't kind of go according to our plan this morning for Wanda and I. But I have a joy. Yesterday was my mother's birthday, and we very well celebrated it. She lives in Dallas, and some of our family came together. My sister came in from close to Memphis, Tennessee to see her. My other sister lives in Dallas. She saw her, and one of my cousins came from Seattle to also to see her. But the joy is that she turned 104. And even though her body has failed her and she can't get up and move around on her own, her mind is still there. And if you give her grief, she will give it right back.
I will now place 2 stones in the cairn for the joys and concerns that have been unspoken. And now we will read the affirmation together. It's number 574 in the back of your hymnal. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. But they shall all sit under their own vines and fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. And now our message for today with Dr. Reverend Neal Jones.
I think most of you know that I'm a therapist. Here are some things I've heard recently from some of my clients. I go walking every other day with my neighbor. Now, exercise doesn't come easy for me, and I've never managed to stay with exercise very long because it's so easy to find excuses like I'm too tired, too busy, too whatever. But knowing that my neighbor will be out there on the sidewalk waiting for me gives me a reason to stick with it. I don't want to let her down. And this, since entering my recovery program, I've really come to rely on my sponsor. I can call him anytime, day or night, when I feel like I'm going to fall off the wagon. I call him not only when I feel like I'm going to drink, but also whenever I'm in any kind of distress, because I've learned the hard way that I'm more likely to take a drink when I'm in distress. My sponsor has been my lifesaver. And this. My mother has had to come move in with us since she developed Alzheimer's. And it's not like my life wasn't complicated enough trying to raise 2 kids. Now I'm responsible for another person. I have to keep my eye on her all the time. The other day she turned the stove on, forgot about it, and melted my saucepan. Thank goodness I have my husband to lean on. He's been so understanding and supportive through all this. And I know there's nothing he can do or say that can cure her, but just knowing he's there means the world to me. And this. I don't know how I would have gotten through my divorce without my best friend. I can't tell you how many times he's had to listen to me cry and moan about the could-haves, would-haves, and should-haves of my marriage. After letting me go on for a while, he'll say something like, let's go have dinner, or let's go watch a movie. And I'll quit my pity party, pick myself up, and get over myself. My friend is helping me to move on with my life. Now, the common thread here is that each of these people is undergoing a change. And each one is turning to another person to help turn their lives around. I think one of the resources we frequently overlook when undergoing a change is our relationships. Now, I could spend all morning citing study after study, verifying the emotional and physical benefits of having relationships in your life. Studies show that married people live longer than single people. But that could mean that married people are miserable longer than single people. Says the divorced guy. People who are making a positive health change are more successful if their partner is making the same kind of change. In counseling, it's the relationship between the client and the therapist that's more influential in the effectiveness of therapy than the theoretical orientation of the therapist or the technique he or she may use. In medicine, the nature of your relationship with your physician has as much or more to do with your getting well than any medication or any other treatment. For example, in one study, the same antidepressant drug was more than twice as effective in one hospital as it was in the other. Same drug, so clearly the patients were being treated differently. On the other hand, the absence of significant relationships is a major risk factor. And we learned this the hard way during the pandemic. It's a major risk factor for all kinds of psychological and physical problems, from depression, heart disease, Alzheimer's. People who have greater social networks generally live longer and with better health. Now, all this makes sense when you consider that we human beings are social animals who come into being in and through relationships and come alive in and through community. But this is not how our highly individualistic culture sees it. Our American culture venerates independence and looks down on dependency as a sign of weakness. We are a nation of solitary explorers who came to this new world seeking a fresh start, of solitary pioneers who made their way across the prairie to start a new life, of solitary settlers who cleared the land and carved out their existence without anybody's help. We are a nation of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, do it yourself, self-reliant self-starters. Our heroes fly onto the scene with capes and single-handedly save the day. Now, we Americans typically see human development as moving from dependency to independence. We start out our lives in infancy, the most dependent state, and move through developmental milestones of greater separation and independence. Weaning, taking your first steps, sleeping in your own bed, potty training, going to school, getting your driver's license, leaving home. The goal of life for us Americans is to stand out and stand apart from others. We assume that independence is a sign of maturity. It's a flaw to rely on others, a weakness to be dependent. You don't want to be a moocher. You don't want to become a burden on anyone. You don't want to be a leech on society. Now, an alternative view of healthy development would be to see human beings as growing in our capacity for interdependence. That word is in our 7 principles. Interdependence. The capacity to be mindful of the needs of others while also attending to your own needs. This understanding maturity is the ability to be oneself while being in relationship to others. It's realizing that we're in this life together and on this planet together, and that when all do well, everyone does well. Now, like a lot of men, I've struggled with this tension between independence and dependency. Many of us men have been shamed around this issue. Many of us have been raised so as to feel ashamed of depending on others. That means you're dependent. Of having needs. That means you're needy. Of not being proficient or all-knowing in everything you do. That means you're inadequate or incompetent. And of asking for help. That means you're weak and not a man. Now, I'd like to think that as a society we have grown beyond this very limited definition of masculinity, but I suspect we haven't come very far. This past June marked the 38th anniversary of my ordination. And I'm proud to say that my definition of ministry has evolved considerably over the years as my definition of masculinity has evolved. Now, in the early days, I saw myself as a minister as having to perform a service. To be competent in my job meant I had to know all the answers, or at least appeared to have all the answers. It meant that I was to minister to the needs of others without having any needs of my own, or at least appear as if I had no needs. During those days, I viewed ministry as a solo mission, something I did for others. In those days, I would not have dared to ask for help or admit I didn't know what to do. To have done so would have been an admission of my inadequacy as a minister and as a man. But thankfully, my conception of ministry and masculinity have changed primarily because of my friendships. These relationships taught me that it was okay to be less than perfect, to have needs, to depend on others, to ask for help. In other words, that it was okay to be human. I eventually came to see ministry as a shared mission, a collaborative venture, not as something I do for others, but as something we do together for the shared community. I came to see that my job was not to be the lead actor or the producer of the play, but to be a supporting actor and a behind-the-scenes stagehand who sets up props and gives cues to other actors. I came to see that I'm most effective when I'm most invisible, because the play is about creating and nurturing a community, not showcasing a minister. I came to see ministry as being primarily about relationships, thanks to the relationships in my life. Our relationships changes, which suggests that if we are attentive to our spiritual growth, we should be attentive to the kinds of relationships we're forming. Now, many of the relationships in our lives are what I would call persuasive relationships. in which another person tries to convince you to change in some way. Salespeople attempt to persuade you to buy something. Politicians attempt to persuade you to vote for them. Leaders attempt to persuade you to follow them. Teachers to learn something. Preachers to save you. Bosses to persuade you to work longer and harder with less pay. Teenagers to persuade you to give them the keys to the car and money for gas. The common thread in all these persuasive relationships is that the person doing the persuading believes that he or she knows what's best for you, which may or not be what you think is best for you. Now, these persuasive relationships are not the most persuasive kinds of relationships, however, when it comes to facilitating change. I think the most facilitative relationships for change are supportive relationships. People in your life who listen to and respect your agenda for change without trying to convert you to their agenda. These are the people who grace our lives by encouraging us to hang in there when we feel like giving up, and to continue to believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves. We change when we immerse ourselves in the experiences of our lives, even unpleasant, painful experiences, because life is like a river, dynamic, flowing, ever-changing, always moving. And we will move too if we immerse ourselves in the experiences of our lives. Certain relationships in our lives support our change because they encourage us to hang in there and embrace more fully experiences we're having difficulty embracing on our own. I think about Dr. Ryberg, that liberal Baptist minister. Yeah, they used to be liberal Baptist. That liberal Baptist minister who became a mentor and something of a father figure to me during my adolescence. He's probably more responsible than any other person for my becoming a minister. So you can blame him. At a critical time in my life, he provided that kind of caring, supportive relationship that facilitates change. When I was in high school, my teachers encouraged me, well, more like pushed me, to enter the American Legion oratorical contest. Now, since the only public speakers I'd ever heard at that point in my life were preachers, and since this was the big time, I went to the preacher of the big time church in town, the Reverend Dr. John L. Ryberg of the First Baptist Church of Smithfield, North Carolina. He helped me compose and practice delivering a speech whose title I can still recall: The Constitution, a Living Document of Freedom. Now, the assignment of standing alone on a stage without a podium or a manuscript, speaking before an audience which included judges who would judge the content and delivery of my speech, felt like standing naked on a stage because I was an extremely shy teenager. And that assignment seemed absolutely impossible. What if I can't get the words out? We will practice enough so that you will know that you can speak to an audience, Dr. Robert would say. What if I forget what to say? By the time of the contest, you will know it so well that you can ad-lib if you have to, Dr. Robert would say. What if I make a mistake? If you do, it'll be okay. Everybody makes mistakes, he would say. But I'm scared. That's okay. If we waited until we weren't afraid to do something, we wouldn't try anything new, he would say. So we practiced my speech. I delivered it in his living room. I delivered it in the empty sanctuary of the First Baptist Church. I delivered it before the Smithfield Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, and the American Legion. Then came the contest. Sometimes I did make mistakes, but Dr. Robert was right. It was okay. We won at the county level, and then at the state level, and then the Southeast Regional, and then we placed third in the national finals. Now, today, oh, well, thank you. You're about 50 years late. Today, if I were to give a speech before the American Legion, I'm sure I would come in dead last. So looking back, what I realized is that what Mr. Robert helped me to do was embrace my fear. He encouraged me to embrace all of my experiences. And when we embrace our experiences, we will change. That's how supportive relationships support change. Now, this is even truer when it comes to our intimate relationships. Now, I almost hesitate to use that word because intimacy has become synonymous with sexual intimacy. But we all know that not all intimate relationships are sexual, and not all sexual relationships are intimate. By intimate relationships, whether they're sexual or not, I mean our closest relationships in which we can be most fully ourselves without pretense or self-consciousness. Such relationships are among life's most precious gifts. Intimate relationships facilitate change on a profound level because such people accept us as we are. And through their acceptance of us, they encourage us to accept ourselves. Even those parts of us that we may not find acceptable, such as our fears, our hurts, our embarrassments, our losses, our neediness. Because our intimate relationships have such great potential to facilitate change, it's important that we choose our intimate partners with care. It's important that we choose someone who does not have an agenda for changing us, but can appreciate and respect our agenda. It's important that we choose someone who can appreciate us as we are and respect all of our experience and who can welcome the changes we undergo as we grow and mature. So, if you want to grow and mature, you will want to be especially attentive to your relationships. You want to notice how much you're giving to your relationships and how much you're receiving. Is your giving and receiving roughly in balance? If not, what do you need to do? You want to notice which relationships you're nurturing and which ones you're neglecting. Are you investing enough of yourself in the relationships that are important to you? Or are you investing too much energy in relationships that are not that important to you? Many of you have intentionally chosen to invest yourself in this congregation because you recognize that it supports the kind of changes you want to see in your life. Here's some things I've heard some of our members say. I grew up in a religious tradition that discouraged questions and was threatened by doubt. I can't believe something just because some religious authority, book, creed, or tradition tells me to believe it. A belief must pass the test of reason for me to embrace it. I come here because here it's okay to doubt the pat answers, and to ask the hard questions, even if they don't have easy answers. For me, it's the questions more than the answers that give meaning to my life. And this, I joined this congregation for my kids as much as for myself. As a single parent, I need all the help I can get. It really does take a village to raise a child. And this is the kind of village I want to help me raise my children. A place where they will be loved and valued and respected. And where they will learn to love, value, and respect others. And this, I come to UUCL because of its involvement in social action. Like so many people, I had become too preoccupied with my career, with my family, and my life. And I was not doing anything to affect the society that shapes my career, my family, and my life. Except to complain to my friends and yell at the television. I want to give something back to life and leave this place a little better than I found it. This congregation gets that and can help me do that. Whatever our reasons for being here, the common thread is that each of us is choosing to change. And we are turning to other people to help us turn around. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Jones, for your willingness to be vulnerable and bring that message to us that will be life-changing. For the gentlemen that are operating our soundboards today, thank you for being a bridge to David, so David and Ellen can take a few days off and hopefully be able to enjoy some time and rest and catch up with themselves. David, if you happen to be listening, which I'm suspicious that you are, they're doing a good job. I also want to remind those of you here that we will have our talk back at about 11:15, 11:30 or so. We'll gather back here in the sanctuary to talk a little bit about what we've gotten from the message today and to let Dr. Jones continue to unpack some of his own life experiences that might make us see and understand more clearly. I believe that's all the announcements I need to make at this time. Is there something I've neglected? Yes, Kim?
The hymn.
Again?
The hymn. Hymn 108.
We need to do that?
Yes.
Thank you. May we take our hymnals into our hands as directed and turn to hymn number 108, Life Flows. It is the song.
I
Answers by Douglas Steer. The ancient question, who am I, inevitably leads to a deeper one. Whose am I? Because there is no identity outside of relationship. You cannot be a person by yourself. To ask, whose am I, is to extend the question far beyond the little self-absorbed self and wonder, who needs you? Who loves you? To whom are you accountable? Whose life is altered by your choices? With whose life is your own, all bound up in obvious and invisible ways?
Let's see if I can do better putting out the flame than it's starting. Would you please join me in extinguishing the chalice, the words are in your order of service. While we extinguish the flame, we still bear in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, until we rise together again. Good job.
Great speaker.
He is a great speaker.